If you're just joining us, we're going to give it just another minute for everyone to join, and then we'll get started. All right, let's kick this off. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session called Streamlined Supplier Enablement. A couple of brief housekeeping items before we get started. Today's session will be recorded and made available to you via email after the close of the session. Also, should you have any questions throughout the presentation, please submit them through the Zoom webinar Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We'll leave a good amount of time at the end to answer your questions. And now I'll introduce today's speaker, Brandyn Cook. Brandyn's expertise brings tremendous value here at Finexio. His strong background in business and payment solutions makes him a trusted advisor to his clients, giving them greater control and efficiency with digital AP payments. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Brandyn.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Megan, for the kind introduction, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Really excited about this presentation. I think it's really important to what we do and to what your organization should be doing in terms of your payments. So I really think there's a lot of value that will be taken away from today. As you can see, we do have a jam-packed agenda, so I'm going to dive right into it. As Megan stated, my name is Brandyn Cook. I'm a CFO advisor and business development executive here at Finexio. My job is to help explain the magic we do here that really helps our CFOs eliminate inefficiencies and improve their processes. Additionally, on this webinar, we have our resident expert on supplier enablement joining our discussion today. Gene Hollander is our director of supplier enablement and brings 15+ years of experience along with him. He really has some great insights to share later that I'm excited to listen into myself. The good thing with Gene is every time I talk to him, I always take away something extremely valuable. So really good to have him on the call today. Just to give you an overview of what we're going to discuss, of course, there will be streamlined supplier enablement, but additionally, we'll show you why this is such an important part of the equation in terms of digital payments. We'll have Gene touch on what is needed for this process, just to get your mind working as to what really is involved here. We'll also address the challenges and the benefits to have a successful supplier enablement, successful launch of a digital program. And then lastly, we'll bring it all together and really illustrate how Finexio helps streamline this process for our customers. Before we do dive into that, I would like to show one quick clip of Rich Vogel, CFO at Loeb Enterprises, discussing his experiences with Finexio.
I'm Rich Vogel, the Chief Financial Officer of Loeb Enterprises, and Finexio is about the best decision we've made over the past 3 or 4 years in terms of improving back office efficiency. At Loeb Enterprises, we've been on an electronic payment system for some time. We constantly look for ways to improve our accounting and finance department, and to be perfectly honest, I was skeptical. The biggest skeptic in the world. I could not be more delighted with the way the Finexio system works. The feedback from my clients have been unbelievable. Our suppliers couldn't be happier with the Finexio system. They are getting paid in the form they want to be paid in on a timely basis. For us, it has been a financial boon and most importantly has caused zero disruption in our back office. I would recommend Finexio to any company. Your suppliers will be happier and the rebates will be meaningful. I am a satisfied client. I'm Rich Vogel, the Chief Financial.
There we go. Excellent. Rich Vogel and the other CFOs we work with, just like him, are proof that Finexio is leading the way in simplifying AP payments. What we discussed today might seem a bit like magic, but we really have the tangible results that support why we are one of the fastest growing payment startups. We help companies drive digital payments and overcome a slew of problems. And specifically today, we'll address the challenges around supplier enablement in digital payments and how Finexio helps streamline that process. So really just to give some background, why is this so important? Where did this topic come from? Really, it's from the day-to-day conversations I have and our team has with CFOs across the country. Every time I meet with, a finance executive, a controller, CFO, I really try to stress the importance of the supplier side of the equation in terms of your payments. Time and time again, I hear executives worried more about rebates and savings, but they just haven't put necessarily the emphasis on the actual implementation of the program. And if I can be frank, I really think it's the most important aspect to consider. It's somewhere where I spend a lot of time with each and every one of the customers I meet with. We've worked with so many companies, including a great example would be Hodgson Powder Company, that have tried to implement digital payments, but have failed, or just, and when I say failed, really just not getting the amount of conversion, the revenue share they projected. For whatever reason, it just didn't go to plan. And generally, I feel where that issue comes about is on the supplier enablement piece. Good news for Hodgson, after they partnered with us, they're now processing over 75% of their payments digitally. And once again, I really feel like that success is hinged on our streamlined supplier enablement. So there's a few specific reasons that this is so important, just to give you some additional background. But first off, just getting the correct data is so vital to the process. We meet with so many finance teams that either don't have the access to the supplier data they think they do, or it's just not accurate or up to date. Gene's certainly going to touch on this point in the next slide. But I think if you took some time to think to the data you all have or your customers have, you're probably seeing some of the same things. And supplier enablement will really help you drive accurate data and get off to a good foot. The second advantage, really thinking through, is just strengthening your supplier relationships. Most of the finance teams I'm working with are paying about 2,000 suppliers on average, and they just really don't have the time or the manpower to keep up with all of those, the outreach, the management, securing all that information. And supplier enablement makes sure your suppliers are really getting paid when they want and how they want to get paid. You're going to hear that a lot today. And then also just helping your business avoid late fees and generate the revenue you're hoping for in that process. But I would say the most important and the biggest advantage to supplier enablement is a successful implementation of your digital payments product, your program. Without this vital step and ongoing support, it's just likely that you're not going to drive the value you projected. Doesn't mean you're going to fail, but I doubt you're going to get what you hoped. And this really has been a major key to what has made Finexio successful and all of our customers. So, a crucial step in this supplier enablement process is really ensuring you correctly board your suppliers. As I already stated, we spend a ton of time on this one step, and we thought it would be great to bring in our expert to hear some battle stories straight from the field. So Gene leads our supplier enablement team, has some really great insights into this process. So without further ado, Gene, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brandon. Yeah, as you've heard, it's like supplier prep work. Getting the suppliers correctly onboarded is crucial, and that starts from the beginning. Things like identifying the suppliers that we're supposed to be targeting, making sure that we have the right data. I like to think of it as, we will work with the data that you have, but the data that you give us can work wonders. We do, I always encourage, even during prospecting or kickoffs, onboarding, the better the data, the better information, the more correctly that you've identified suppliers, the more accurately and faster we can get these suppliers on and paid through Finexio and ramp up that revenue back to you. What I have found is, I would say at least about 80% of the companies we've onboarded just realize that they're missing information. If they're able to do a little bit of the work in advance, even as simple as for top targets, doing things like just pulling some invoice copies. Anything like that, where some pieces of data, we can take that and we can run with that and get that information updated on your behalf and get those suppliers onboarded. An example I like to always tout is like a Sherwin-Williams or like an AT&T. You're going to have suppliers that they're happy to take payments, but it might be different in locations. It might be different in commodity. So that's information that's great to have to correctly onboard those suppliers. Just making sure that we have that sort of up and running and ready to go by the time that you are ready to switch this on. You don't want to sort of wait to the last minute to think about pulling that data. So the earlier you can get it on the radar for some customers, it could be that they need to have their IT group pull that info. And I can tell you, especially when you get into the fourth quarter, as we're about to do, there are other projects, of course, that IT has to work on, and there's probably like a scheduler that they do. So if you wait till the last minute, you might have delays to onboard this exciting initiative of payments that you want us to do towards maybe the beginning of the year. So getting ahead of it, it's never too early just to start getting it, because you can also get some insights on your own of, okay, I'm getting my info and ooh, I do see there's an opportunity here to get fill in the blanks on the sum, start thinking about how you want to capture that, contact info if you need to do some prep work. But again, we will work with what you've got, what you want to drive your program. Getting the best information and getting the suppliers correctly identified sooner than later will just help you truly ramp up to where you want to be.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Gene. There's so much to think through. I like to say the supplier enablement is like one piece of what we do, but there's so much within it. And I really think the data is so vital. When I'm meeting with people on the day-to-day, as we're going through, our sales process, was trying to get that information. And like he said, more times than not, it's not necessarily accurate. It's not all there, or it's just hard to find, which is just to tell you, it's just a good sign of showing you how difficult to get this visibility into your spend really can be. It's a lot more complicated than I think it's oftentimes perceived.
And we do have our teams have the ability we can identify when there is a gap. There's going to be suppliers, and your AP teams out there probably know this well in hand. There's going to be some where any type of interaction, there might be some additional info that select suppliers might need, like a customer account number. Just helps the accounts receivables in the supplier identify who the customer is. It's the same thing with payments. Sometimes there might be select things that need to be gathered, but we can also help with that during a campaign. We can flag those and report those and help escalate. We've got some automated ways to do that. We have some great rapport with customers where we're able to automatically send sort of those needs. We call them need more information, basically where we just need an extra piece of data that ad hoc on a few suppliers in order to move the onboarding along for those suppliers. And we can quickly get that back, get that pumped in, and get the supplier where they need to be to move forward with enrollment. So it's not just all this has to be done up front, but obviously the more that's up front that is prepped before we start these supplier campaigns with customers, the less after the fact and ad hoc requests that would have to be coming back.
Excellent. Yeah, just great advice there. Just making sure you have all your ducks in a row and, putting your best foot forward. So really appreciate that, Gene. As we're moving through here, I really think that onboarding and the data is really, really important. But I think, another piece that a lot of finance teams just don't really realize, because if you haven't done it, you don't know what you don't know. But there's just so much work that needs to be done around ensuring your suppliers actually participate in our program or, whatever program you roll out. And quite frankly, when I'm meeting with people, this is really just a serious grind. And quite often it's a sales call. And when I'm meeting with finance teams, their executives, and then, even ground level, troops on the ground, I find that they don't either have the time, they don't have enough people, if you have thousands of suppliers, and quite often just the right skill set to drive that participation. I was just talking with Gene before this call, if I had to be an accountant, probably wouldn't be the best one out there, but the same is true for people in your accounting department. They're quite often not, the best salesperson. It's just not what they've been trained to do. A really great example here is a company we partnered with called Morgan & Morgan, a large law firm. I'm sure some of you have heard of them, but they tried to implement a virtual card program before partnering with us and had very little success just getting their suppliers onto the program. And I think a big reason for that was they just didn't have the time to continue to reach out to suppliers and get them to participate in the program. Thankfully, after partnering with Finexio, they had a 58% increase in digital payments. So this piece is so important. You'll see, if you decide to work with banks or other software providers, they're really going to focus on just the top tier. They know they can get on the card, that they can get over to digital. But what happens to the other 80, 90% of your suppliers? That's going to fall directly onto you. At Finexio, a big difference is we focus on 100% of your spend, and we will get all of your suppliers enrolled into our program. Our goal is to pay your suppliers when and how they want to get paid. I promise you, you're going to hear that a lot today. And there it is again. And we're going to send 100% of your payments. So really view this as an opportunity to consolidate all of your payments and truly drive digital conversion throughout your organization. Another critical aspect here is just the ongoing support. So I've hinted at this throughout, the presentation. Gene touched on it, but the process doesn't just stop at onboarding. Your business is still going to be responsible for a lot of different tasks. First off, as we just touched on, converting suppliers that didn't enroll in your first pass. That's going to happen. I really tell, the companies we work with to view supplier enablement really as a sales process to a certain degree. And I think it has to be managed accordingly. Your business is also going to be responsible for managing all this data, managing and securing bank account information, and then supporting any questions, any issues that come up with the payment process. And I'm sure, if you think back again to your own payment process, other places you've worked, there's significant hours spent each week just working through payment issues, processing payments. A good example of a company we just worked with named Phoenix Stamping, they were spending over 10 plus hours a week processing payments and dealing with issues around payments with their suppliers. After partnering with Finexio, they're now spending 0. So they're sending us a payment file, and that's all they have to do. And that's so important to think through that ongoing support, not only for yourself, but for your suppliers. So your suppliers are going to have access to our client services team, their own designated portal to give the same benefits we're giving to you to them. So really a really key differentiator in our program. And then lastly, just thinking through the benefits of what supplier enablement is going to bring to the table. I think this is something that's also not thought through a lot, but just really strengthening your supplier relationships. You're going to be sending, more consistent, quicker payments. They're going to be more secure. We're going to take you out of scope for a lot of the things you're currently responsible for. And I really think the transparency piece is really important. Gene just hinted at it. You might be paying a Sherwin-Williams that has a bunch of different locations, but on the flip side of that, as a CFO, you might be managing multiple different entities that are all, different locations, processing payments independently. And I hear it all the time. I just don't know who we're paying, where we're paying them out of, what payment method we're using. And with our tools, our portals, our service, you're really going to gain a tremendous amount of transparency, know where your dollars are being spent and how they're being spent. So really important things to think through here on this piece. Additionally, this is a little bit off subject here, but it's key to what we do as a business. And when you're looking at the industry, we're seeing customers that are experiencing an environment where they're spending 6 figures plus just to run their payments, where, working with Finexio can really leverage hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings by eliminating all your paper-based payments and additionally generating revenue share. We have case studies we'll send out, and I'll touch on at the end of the presentation with Clark Hill, where just in year 1, we were able to save them over $150,000 just getting them out of manual payments. So this certainly can really be a major swing from a financial standpoint, and it's a major benefit to think through. And once again, Finexio is going to do all the heavy lifting for you. I think digital payments is really crucial for the future of finance teams moving forward. It's really what makes me so excited to talk about this partnership, talk about what we do, but really to achieve these benefits, supplier enablement and the supplier side of the equation are so important to think through. As I've said, I spend the majority of my time with CFOs here. It's just not enough to buy a product. You really have to think through the implementation and approach to your suppliers. So this slide here really just does a great job illustrating, excuse me, one too far. Does a great job illustrating where Finexio fits in the process. This is a bit interesting because we really come in at the end of the AP process. So once the approval's gone through, payment data is created, that's really where Finexio comes in. And our thought was usually there's not a major barrier on the front end. It's more on trying to get out of the check writing business, trying to make quicker payments, more secure, ease up cash flow issues. So our thought was let's just engage on the back end so we don't have to interfere with what's already working. And then we come there and help improve those inefficiencies that have been such a challenge to eliminate, help with delivering and managing payments. Another important piece here, we are ERP agnostic, so we can work with any system out there. And once again, the key to success here is our customized approach to supplier enablement. It is really our secret sauce and what has driven our success. I mean, what we're doing today is really just kind of lifting up the hood and showing you what makes Finexio work and why we're doing so well and why our customers are doing so well. Then lastly here, a frequent question I get asked is, who are your competitors? And really our competitors are just the banks. There's a few other software companies, but really primarily the banks and just doing it yourself. I think the big differences here are doing payments with your bank is really like going to the grocery store to go to dinner, to make dinner. You have to buy all the ingredients, follow the recipe exactly. And frequently mistakes are going to be made for, quite frankly, the same reasons here. You don't have enough time, don't have enough people, you forgot a step, you don't have the right recipe, you're missing some of the data. But with Finexio, it's really like going to that high-end restaurant where we have access to the best ingredients, and their experienced chefs will perfectly cater the meal you're looking for and deliver it to you with the white glove service you expect. So this is really one of the things that's been missing from payments and what has made us so successful. Banks are going to sell you a product, but after that, you're really going to work for them. You're going to have to onboard your suppliers in some cases, and you're going to have to give the ongoing support and manage this program. With Finexio, we have access to all the same products plus some, and we manage the program for you. This is going to drive higher conversion rates, higher revenue share, and higher supplier satisfaction. What we do has really been viewed as a win for everybody. And it's been a big shift. Banks and others aren't talking to people about outcomes, but we really want our CFOs and finance teams to think about the outcomes they're looking for and their ideal end state. And when we do, that end state is typically a place where they have cross-functional collaboration, eliminating as many manual processes as possible, and driving revenue-generating, more secure payment methods such as digital payments. So this is really what's made us successful, made the clients we serve successful, and I certainly hope you've taken something out of today that will make your organization more successful as well. So just in recap, today we discussed why supplier enablement is such an important part of the equation for digital payments. Gene Hollander discussed what is needed for this process to be successful. We addressed the challenges and benefits to successful supplier enablement. And then lastly, we just illustrated how Finexio helps streamline this process for our customers and partners. So that's it for the slides. We are going to open it up to a Q&A in just a second, as we have about 6 minutes left. But first, I did want to call your attention to a few items. One, we do have a dedicated partner team. So to the potential partners on the call today, we'll send this information out, but happy to connect you there. As well as we do have a really good ebook around bridging the last mile, working with ERP system. So if you're curious about that, we can send that information out. And then lastly, as promised, our case studies. So those will be sent out following the presentation. But with further ado, that's everything I had today. So thank you so much for your time. And we are happy to answer any questions that you all have.
All right, Brandon, first question that came in. We already utilize our own payment portal. Would we be able to use Finexio? Would they be able to integrate with that? Or would we have to change our portal?
That's a good question. I think I would need more specifics on, what the portal looks like, how they're using it. Is that a front end software where they're just, is that automating, the approval process and invoice receivable? If that's the case, we certainly can plug in on the back end and still help facilitate payments. I think what they might be leading into as well is more of, we're paying people through portals. So, quite often our customers, their suppliers have their own AR portal. And, they have their own unique login. They have to do all these extra steps to make payments. And I think that's a big differentiator with us. Whatever those customized setups are, we'll discuss that in the onboarding process and we can make those payments for you still. So I don't know exactly if I hit the nail on the head there or if I covered what they were looking for, but either one of those situations, we're still good to go.
Great. Second question. Are there any ever any cases where you do not reach out to specific suppliers?
Yes, yeah. So that comes up quite a bit. And actually, Gene and his team and our dedicated onboarding team will go through that at the end of the sales process. So we'll go through your entire list of vendors. And there's actually a section in there for do not contact, or if you have specific requests. So that's something I'm talking about with every CFO I meet with through the sales process. But it's a really important piece of information. Everybody has those key suppliers, may already have negotiated terms. We also do a lot in distribution. And as you can imagine, that comes up quite a bit there as you're buying, so much in bulk from a few suppliers. So that's certainly not an issue. We hope to do all your payments, but we do have situations too where we don't have to do everything. So if you want us to take a part of your business, that works as well.
Yeah, and to add a little color on that, I mean, we've even had earlier this year, we had a $40 million plus, it was like a health benefit for a particular company that benefited others in the industry, but they were a big part of. And they had identified that was one that they had been doing standard ACH. They wanted us to sort of drive all of that, own the ACH info, and we were able to quickly get that up and take that responsibility away from them having to manage the ACH payments for something so large. We were able to do it for them and get it set up right away. And there are those that are going to be like that. It's predetermined ACH. We can do it. We can get the info from the customer and get it, quietly set up where we're not having to we're not reaching out in a sales manner for the specific suppliers. It could be intercompany payments. Sometimes it's even employees. It just depends on the nature of what the customer wants us to do. And we've got several customers where electronically we're doing well over 3/4. Some of them even close to 90% of all their payments. It's not just that we're doing them all, it's we're doing like almost 90% of them electronically, not check. So we have that capability, yes, and we can work with you both ahead of time towards the end of onboarding who's flagged for that, as well as down the road if you find there are special relationships later or new suppliers. We've been calling in general supplier campaign for a while, but at any point in time, we can certainly prioritize those for that specific setup or a do not call flag completely.
Okay, it looks like we don't have any other questions. So thank you everyone for attending today's session. Please be on the lookout for follow-up emails with today's recorded presentation that will be available on demand, and also some information on our next Lunch and Learn session. We hope to have you with us again soon. Take care, everyone.
Thank you all. Talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.